Hello aspiring game developers and welcome to another NDS Programming tutorial. This time we are going to be looking at the Nightfox library template files so that you guys can see how to get your project up and running. Now theoretically, these template files are all you are going to be needing to get your game running, but I will be making a couple tutorial videos on how to get this all integrated with your IDE. Now technically with Nightfox, you don't actually have to use Nightfox to be able to build games and such. But these templates make things really easy, and the DevKit Pro default setup requires you to use the IDE with Programmer's Notepad, so we're not going to do that. So, you will notice when you actually open up your Nightfox library folder, you will just see a template. Not a C++ template, not a C template. The C template I've got here is actually what was the original template with a couple little changes. The C++ template is what I will always be using, and I will actually be putting a link to this in the description so you guys can download it and use it, paste it, whatever. There's a couple things that I changed to this to make things work with some expansions I've added. So we're going to open this up, and you are going to see a data folder, the actual Nightfox library folder with all of your header files if you needed to change some defines or something, and the actual library, which is already compiled. Nitro files is where you're going to put in all your resources that you want to load into the game. I will discuss that in a later tutorial. And then you have your source folder, where here I have a main.cpp. And of course it's going to open on my other screen. So just a second. Let me bring this over to you guys. Full screen it. So as you can see, compared to the original C file, I've really cleaned things up. I changed the standard io.h to the C standard io because this is C++. I include the nds.h and the nflib.h. nds.h is basically for basic commands in NDS Programming, and the nf_lib, which is Nightfox library, is for things that is for like the graphic stuff. Technically, what I've got set up right here, you do not need the Nightfox library for. However, I still keep it there because most of the time I'm using Nightfox library because it makes things so much easier. It's not that I can work without Nightfox library, I certainly can and have done so, but I just prefer this because it works. So anyways, if you look into your main, the int argc char star argv and brackets, generally you may want to reformat like that, as I prefer to do. Same for this while loop right here, kind of like that. The first command you will see is console demo init. This is a function in libNDS. If you Google that, you will find documentation for basically what's in nds.h. Shows you a lot of crazy things, as well as the standard API for working with graphics that you will not be using. So that's why I'm making these tutorials, to show you what you will and will not be using. Console demo init is if you want text, like a text-based game. And this sets up a basically console-style window on the bottom screen of the NDS. Console clear clears the screen. There is no ability to scroll in the console window, so what you'll have to do is type out all your text and then wait until something happens and then clear the text and then display a new set of text. It's a little annoying if you're trying to run text games, but then again, NDS wasn't really built for text games. Slideshow games make a lot more sense, which I will be showing you. And I will actually be leading you through our example of Legend of Hellblade. Set brightness is actually a really cool function that I did not understand its usefulness of until very recently. Basically, this first parameter, a 1, 2, or 3, controls top, bottom, or both screens, and this 0 is going to be your brightness setting. Now, this is not actually like the brightness settings inside the NDS, but rather this is a GPU control that has some awesome benefits to it. If you go down to -15, it will be black, and if you go to +15, it will be white. So the idea is if you want to kind of have a fade-in effect when you're doing like splash screens or something, you can just make a loop and it will fade in to your splash screen. Then you can fade out, switch the splash screen, and fade into that one. Very, very useful. When working with the NDS console, the NDS does not have floating point, so that is why here I am using iprintf. Now, if you wanted to use the C++ route of IOStream, that works too. Just remember that the NDS does not like floating point numbers, so do not use float or double. And iprintf just is a safety mechanism to stay away from that. /n works, variables work, it's all good. And then I have basically a while loop right here and the command swi wait for vblank. Now the SWI stands for software interrupt, and vblank is basically the time period when the NDS is not drawing the screen. And that is actually a very important time because that is when you want to change what should be drawn on the screen. vblank is the update period for sending new graphics to the screen or changing a location of a sprite or anything like that. It's also a very useful tool for counting frames because SWI wait for vblank happens once every 60 seconds. Or vblank happens once every 60 seconds. SWI wait for vblank obviously just waits till that point, which is useful. So here I'm just looping through that so that the processor kind of goes idle and saves battery life as we're waiting for the frames to pass. And that's all this is. Hopefully it all makes sense to you. And I will get back. No, I do not want to save any changes. So let's go back to our template. Now, every time you want to build something, you will always need an icon for your game. And this would actually be your icon specific to, that would always like show up in when you're in like the menu of the NDS. This is just a BMP file, so feel free to make your own custom icon for your game by editing this file in your project. And then the make file, ooh, that's the old make file. The make file I will have linked will be 7.78 kilobytes, not the 7.07, and basically it is an edited make file to work with a music library that we will also be using called MaxMod, and I'll be making tutorials on that later. So anyways, I will link this template with the updated make file for you guys. And if you did not notice, there's also a clean and compile.batch file. And so basically you can edit the source in whatever you want to build or code in, and you can just double click this compile. My .string showed up. Looks like this. I can just hit enter, and now you will see a .l file and a .nds file. And I already have the emulator downloaded, ready to go. So if I double click this and scroll over here, you can see the hello world. So that's all that's happening there. Just gonna clean and get rid of all that. obviously you can just grab this template and just put it wherever you want to make your project, rename it to whatever you want to make your project, and that should be everything. Oh, I forgot something here. I did forget something. If you go to Tools, Emus, this is an old version of Nightfox, so yeah, you guys should have an updated one. It'll only show DeskMeMe, and it'll show actually a DeskMeMe, a DeskMeMe Dev, and a DeskMeMe 64. As you saw, I was probably using the 64, so because I'm using a 64-bit machine, which is like standard these days. So anyways, that's where you can find emulators. Makes things easier to test the game. If you have a flash card, you can actually run it. Most flash cards will allow you to run that game. You may need something called HB menu, which there's stuff right here talking about it. There's a couple other downloads that you can use to get them working. That's homebrew menu, and you can find splash screens right here. And when working with Nightfox, you actually have to edit these splash screens in order to make them work. Go figure. But anyways, these are splash screens that you will want to include in your games. So, because if you're going to be following this tutorial, making games based off of these tutorials using Nightfox and DevKit Pro, you always need DevKit Pro. Nightfox is optional, but highly recommended. So yeah, I believe that is everything for this tutorial. Sorry if I've been kind of wandering all over the place, but yeah. So, next tutorial I will be showing you how to get projects up and running in Programmer's Notepad, and in the following tutorial I will be showing you how to do it in Code Blocks, which is a little bit trickier, but worth it. So until then, keep making games, people.